Hello and welcome to this edition of News Today. Without delay, let's have a look at the headlines first. CDS CEO bans 35 fixed-dose combination drugs. Justice B.R. Gavai recommended as next Chief Justice of India. Tamil Nadu sets subcommittee to review the center-state relationship. Parliamentary Standing Committee presented report regarding MGNREGA in Lok Sabha. India's trade deficit with China widens to $99.2 billion. India, Middle East, Europe economic corridor not merely a trade route but a modern-day Silk Route, says Union Minister of Commerce and Industry. In the first news for the day, we look at a major development from the pharmaceutical sector. The Central Drugs Standard Control Organization, or CDSCO, the apex drugs regulatory body, has issued a significant directive. It has ordered all states and union territories to stop the manufacture, sale and distribution of 35 fixed-dose combination or FDC drugs. Now, why has this decision been taken? It comes in response to violations of the provisions under the New Drugs and Clinical Trials or NDCT rules of 2019, which are framed under the Drugs and Cosmetics Act of 1940. Several of these FDC drugs were found to be non-compliant. So, what exactly are FDC drugs? Fixed-dose combination drugs are pharmaceutical products that contain one or more active ingredients used for a particular indication or set of indications. And for clarity, the active ingredient is the biologically active component in any drug form, be it a tablet, capsule, cream, or injectable, that delivers the intended therapeutic effect. FDCs fall under four broad categories, and under the NDCT rules of 2019, they are treated as new drugs when they meet certain conditions. Let's take a look at those. Firstly, when two or more drugs already approved for individual use are combined in a fixed ratio. Secondly, when there is an alteration in the ratio of drugs in an already approved FDC, along with changes to its claims. Now, you might wonder, why are FDC drugs even preferred? There are a few key reasons. One, they offer better therapeutic outcomes thanks to enhanced synergistic effects between the combined drugs when they are rationally selected. Two, they improve patient compliance by reducing the pill burden, combining multiple medications into a single tablet or capsule. And three, they help reduce the overall cost of therapy since a combined product often costs less than purchasing the individual drugs separately. Now, we look at a significant development in the Indian judiciary. Justice B.R. Gavai has been recommended as the next Chief Justice of India. As per the established practice of the senior-most judge being named as the successor, the current Chief Justice of India has recommended Justice Gavai's name to the Union Law Ministry. Now, moving on to the appointment process. After receiving the recommendation from the outgoing Chief Justice, the Union Minister of Law, Justice and Company Affairs forwards the proposal to the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister, in turn, advises the President on the appointment. As Clause 2 of Article 124 of the Constitution, the Chief Justice of India and the judges of the Supreme Court are appointed by the President. And in case there's any doubt about the fitness of the senior-most judge to take up the office, other judges are consulted under the same article, Article 124, Clause 2. Now, let's take a quick look at how the Chief Justice is appointed in other major democracies, like the UK and the USA. In the United Kingdom, the President of the Supreme Court is chosen through a statutory selection process laid out in the Constitutional Reform Act 2005. An independent selection commission is convened by the Lord Chancellor under rules set by the Parliament. This commission evaluates the candidates. Once a selection is made, the Lord Chancellor consults with senior judges and government officials before submitting the recommendation to the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister then notifies the King for the formal appointment. Meanwhile, in the United States, both the executive and the legislature play a role in the composition of the Supreme Court. The President nominates the Chief Justice, usually after consulting advisors. This nomination is then subject to a Senate confirmation, which requires a simple majority vote. In a significant move from Tamil Nadu that could have far-reaching implications for federal governance in India, the Tamil Nadu government has set up a committee to review the center-state relationship. This committee will be chaired by former Supreme Court Judge Justice Kurian Joseph. Its primary mandate is to suggest measures that will reinforce the constitutional rights of Indian states. To understand the context better, let's turn to a historical parallel. The Rajmannar Committee, formed in 1969. This committee was established with the purpose of studying the constitution and recommending maximum autonomy for states in legislative, executive, and judicial matters. It made several important observations. For instance, it criticized Article 365, calling it a tool for unjustified central overreach. It also strongly recommended the repeal of Article 356, which allows for the imposition of President's rule. Furthermore, it suggested that the Interstate Council under Article 263 should be empowered. Additionally, the committee felt that the Finance Commission's role was being sidelined and needed greater recognition. Moving forward, Tamil Nadu's new committee is not the first to examine the dynamics between the centre and the states. The Sarkaria Commission, set up in 1983, was another major initiative in this area. It did not favour disbanding all India services in the interest of the country's integrity. Instead, it selected new All India services. It emphasized that President's rule should be used only as a last resort. It also recommended that active politicians should not be appointed as governors. Moreover, it suggested that the three-language formula should be implemented in its true spirit across all states. Later, in 2007, the Panchi Commission offered further insights. One of its key suggestions was to establish a formal impeachment mechanism for governors, akin to the process followed for the president under Article 61. It also recommended that the centre consult with states while legislating on matters listed in the concurrent list. In addition, it advised against the blanket application of Article 356 and emphasized minimizing its misuse. With this latest initiative, Tamil Nadu joins a long-standing conversation on federal balance and state rights, reviving important constitutional questions that have been the subject of study for decades. Next, we take a closer look at a significant update concerning rural employment in India. The Parliamentary Standing Committee has presented its report on the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, or MGNREGA, in the Lok Sabha. As a quick reminder, MGNREGA, enacted in 2005, has a clear mandate to provide at least 100 days of guaranteed wage employment in a financial year to every rural household. Now, let's move on to the key issues highlighted by the committee in this report. First up, high pendencies. The total pending liabilities under MGNREGA stand at 23,446.27 crore rupees. That's a massive 27.26% of the current budget. Next, we come to the deletion of job cards. In the year 2021-22 alone, around 50.31 lakh job cards were deleted, many due to minor spelling errors or Aadhaar mismatches. Then, there's the issue of wages. MGNREGA wages have not kept up with inflation and in fact have fallen below subsistence levels, posing a major concern. And when it comes to social audits, irregularities continue. In 2024-25, only about 67% of the planned Gram Panchayats were audited. So, what did the committee recommend in response? Firstly, a survey. The committee has called for an independent and transparent nationwide survey to gain valuable insights into the shortcomings of the program. Secondly, an increase in compensation. The current compensation rate for delayed wages, just 0.05% of unpaid wages, should be increased to ensure timely payments for workers. Third, regarding Aadhaar implementation, the committee noted that Aadhaar-based payment systems should remain optional and alternative mechanisms must be made available. Fourth, to strengthen social audits. The Department of Rural Development has been advised to introduce a social audit calendar for ensuring regular and timely audits. Now, let's shift focus to some new initiatives under MGNREGA. To begin with, there's an emphasis on promoting livelihood activity. An advisory has been issued to states focusing on plantation work, with special emphasis on horticulture plantations. Additionally, we have the Yuktadhara portal developed in coordination with ISRO's NRSC. This portal enables GIS-based planning using remote and space technology. And finally, to improve individual beneficiary livelihoods by involving NRLM-compliant cluster-level federations as implementing agencies for nurseries, plantations, and other individual beneficiary works. A major concern is brewing on the trade front, as India's trade deficit with China has now widened to a staggering $99.2 billion in the fiscal year 2024-25. This sharp increase has largely been driven by a surge in imports of electronic goods such as EV batteries and solar cells, along with a rise in consumer durables entering the Indian market. On the other hand, India's exports to China have declined during the same period, dropping to just $14.3 billion. Now, this widening trade gap has raised several key concerns. One of the biggest issues is the threat to domestic manufacturing. Artificially low-priced Chinese imports are posing a serious risk to Indian domestic manufacturing, especially in sectors like steel, chemicals, and electronics, which are already vulnerable. Adding to that is the strategic concern over dependency. The widening trade deficit signifies structural dependence on Chinese goods, creating supply chain vulnerabilities. In fact, it poses potential threats to national security. For example, China could leverage this dependency to its advantage during border negotiations or in the event of a geopolitical emergency. There's also the risk of India being used to bypass US trade regulations. With growing restrictions on Chinese goods in the US, there's concern that China could use India as a backdoor route to access American markets, potentially straining India-US trade relations. Moreover, Chinese manufacturers might divert their exports to India due to US tariffs, increasing the risk of price dumping and harming Indian markets. And beyond all this, the consistent trade imbalance leads to a continuous outflow of foreign exchange. In response, India has taken several initiatives to reduce this growing dependence and check the rising trade deficit. Efforts are being made to strengthen domestic manufacturing through flagship programs like the Production Linked Incentive or PLI scheme and the Make in India initiative. To reduce reliance on imports for essential goods, India is also building localized supply chains in critical sectors. A notable example is the setting up of bulk drug parks to cut down dependency on China. To boost exports, the government is offering various incentives, such as the rebate of state and central levies and taxes, also known as the ROSCTL scheme, and the Interest Equalization Scheme or IES, which enhances export competitiveness. Additionally, the Market Access Initiative scheme has been introduced, and trade remedies like anti-dumping duties are being used as safeguards to protect domestic industries from unfair foreign competition. As India navigates this growing economic challenge, balancing trade with national interest remains a top priority. A major global initiative is gaining attention as the Union Minister of Commerce and Industry has described the India-Middle East-Europe Economic Corridor or IMEC as not merely a trade route, but a modern-day Silk Route. Highlighting its significance, the minister stated that IMEC is expected to bring down logistics cost by up to 30% and reduce transportation time by 40%. Beyond numbers, the project aims to create seamless trade linkages across continents, truly redefining connectivity on a global scale. In terms of implementation, the minister outlined the path forward for making IMEC a success. This includes collaboration and active engagement from all stakeholders, including industry, think tanks, and academia. Innovative financing models have also been suggested, such as the introduction of the long-term IMEC bonds. To appreciate the symbolism, it's worth recalling the Silk Route, a historic trade network that connected Asia to Europe. Used from the 2nd century BC until the 14th to 15th century AD, it facilitated not just trade, but also cultural exchange across civilizations. Now, let's turn to what IMEC is in today's context. It is a multi-modal connectivity project formalized through a Memorandum of Understanding signed at the G20 Summit in New Delhi in 2023. Signatories include India, the European Union, France, Germany, Italy, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and the United States. The primary aim of IMEC is to develop infrastructure such as ports, railways, roads, sea lines, and pipelines. These developments are intended to boost trade between India, the Arabian Peninsula, the Mediterranean region, and Europe. Looking at its strategic importance, IMEC carries strong geostrategic value. It promotes trade resilience by offering alternatives to critical sea lines of communication, effectively bypassing maritime choke points like the Suez Canal. From a geo-economic perspective, it taps into the potential for deep economic integration between India, the Middle East, and Europe. Moreover, it serves as a strategic counter to China's Belt and Road Initiative, providing a viable and transparent alternative for global infrastructure development. With its historical echoes and future-forward vision, IMEC is shaping up to be more than a corridor. It is becoming a transformative force in global trade and diplomacy. As we conclude today's main news, let's have a look at some quick updates. UT Island has been devastated by 2 years of war between the Sudanese army and the Paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, or RSF. UT Island is located at the confluence of the Blue and White Niles in Khartoum, Sudan. The Ministry of Mines has today issued the guidelines for setting up of centers of excellence under the National Critical Mineral Mission, which was launched in January 2025 under the Ministry of Mines. Over 1.3 crore individuals were insured via GEM platform in FY 2024-25. It is public procurement portal for goods and services for all central government and state government ministries, departments, public sector units, etc. Global Trade Outlook and Statistics 2025 is released by the World Trade Organization. Under current conditions, the volume of world merchandise trade is likely to fall by 0.2% in 2025. The decline is expected to be particularly steep in North America. Indian Navy hosted MGNREGA 25 Symposium to commemorate World Meteorological Organization, or WMO, formation and WMO Day 2025. WMO was established on 23 March 1950 as a specialized agency of the United Nations. Scientists from the Zoological Survey of India have identified a new species of beetle named Clinidium lanite. The newly found species was discovered in the Tale Valley Wildlife Sanctuary in Arunachal Pradesh. The National Anti-Doping Agency, or NADA, India hosts a national conference on building together a clean sport ecosystem. NADA is an autonomous body under the Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports. Its aim is creating a dope-free environment and promoting fair play in sports in India. Harvard researchers question the wet bulb temperature survival threshold, suggesting it may be closer to 31 degrees Celsius instead of the widely accepted 35 degrees Celsius. Wet bulb temperature is a meteorological term used to describe the lowest temperature that can be reached by evaporating water into the air at constant pressure. Supreme Court upholds Urdu signage in Maharashtra. SC also observed that language belongs to a community, to a region, to people, and not to a religion. Urdu language is an Indo-Aryan language which originated and developed in the Indian subcontinent. India and China are working towards restarting the Kailash Mansarovar Yatra, which was remained suspended since 2019. Kailash Mansarovar is a holy pilgrimage in the western Himalayan ranges of the Tibetan Autonomous Region. Before we sign off, let's challenge your understanding in today's installment of Test Your Learning. Thank you for joining us. We hope you found this episode of News Today engaging. For the solutions to the quiz and to access the PDF version of News Today, remember to visit the provided links in the description below.